There are more than just one or two good Godzilla films. You see, Godzilla can adapt to different messages and themes as much as he can get plastic surgery. So one thing I've noticed within the Godzilla fandom and casual viewers in general is a sort of condescending look on the franchise itself. As in, there are these stigmas that literally no Godzilla films are good besides the original, or only the recent American films are good because they look the way special effects are supposed to look. Now, people can like what they like, but to proclaim that only a few select entries of a franchise that has existed for nearly 70 years are actually good is nothing but a case of short sightedness. I mean, if a film series and franchise like Godzilla has been going on for 7 decades, then surely that means people are turning in for a reason, right? And quite frankly, there's more to it than just profit. Although, if you know the history, then of course making money is an essential part of the process. But I must say, Godzilla has more often than not been with a purpose. But before I continue, I have to make an offering for Toho to not copyright this video. Come on, come on, come on. Ah, damn it. Oh well. Let's talk about why Toho Godzilla films deserve more respect. People can debate about whichever films they want validated, but today I just want to quickly go over the genuine merit these films have and how they inspire me as a creator myself. Much like the first Godzilla film, the vast majority of Godzilla's outings had been of purpose. The first Godzilla being a metaphor for the atomic bomb is as powerful and thought-provoking as the praise it does deserve, but the franchise simply did not stop there. Godzilla at the end of the day is a Japanese character through and through, and Godzilla himself is a symbol of Japan. That is why he is able to adapt to the times where many brilliant Japanese creators in the film business have poured raw passion into developing Godzilla in diverse ways. And a big part of that is because Japan evolves too. Times change, and so do countries. Think about it. The decade and childhood you grew up in is different from the one we're currently living in. The Godzilla you grew up with is different from the Godzilla we have now. Of course, nowadays we have multiple Godzillas at once, and even simple promotions like theme park rides are getting their own Godzillas. If anything, there's a Godzilla for everyone, because they take aspects from past Godzillas. Showa Godzilla laid the groundwork for all Godzillas going forward. This includes the evolution that Showa Godzilla went through himself, and the fact that this specific character spanned 3 decades, which is a time span that not a single Godzilla since has been in charge for. In these 3 decades, we get to see many different points in Japan's culture and society, as well as how these Godzilla films dealt with a plethora of different topics. Such topics are over potential issues that the writers like to discuss in ways that are subtle: television, greedy exploitation, imperialism, scientific advancements, fatherhood, pollution, unity between nations, and daily life. Ichiro's struggles in Godzilla's Revenge, and Okinawa opening up to Japan in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla are such examples. Major writers in the Showa era include Shinichi Sakazawa and Takeshi Kimura, whose real name was Karu Mopuchi. I have to mention Yukio Takayama, who wrote my favorite Terra Mechagodzilla. Directors include the legendary Ishiro Honda, Jun Fukuda, and Yoshimitsu Banno. If there was a character to create new situations around, then why not a giant monster who can fit new surroundings as much as he can destroy it? Getting to the Heisei series, Godzilla was scaled up and given more animalistic behavior. This set of films, which spanned from 1984 to 1995, tried to create storytelling that had a stricter continuity, but they succeeded in that depends on the viewer. The Heisei series still explored new ideas, from 1984's Return of Godzilla taking center stage in the Cold War from the perspective of the Japanese, to 1989's vs. Biollante, delving into genetic warfare and fighting over Godzilla's DNA. It's interesting to note that Godzilla discussed the dangers of genetic tampering before Jurassic Park hit the screen in 1993.
But to go back to the Return of Godzilla, I recently found out about the Able Archer event of 1983, where the whole world almost got blown to pieces by nuclear warheads. And it's interesting how this film came out just a year later, and while that information was probably classified at the time, it's interesting how the writers of Return of Godzilla were able to match the real world in closer ways than they might have known.
1991's versus King Ghidorah went crazy with time travel, but had a cool message about Japan's economy and international relations. And it happened to be created during the Lost Decade, after the bubble burst. If you've played Like a Dragon Zero, then you know all about the bubble economy. Godzilla changed during his era, reflecting the times. I mean, looking back today, Heisei Godzilla rightfully looks like he's from the 90s. Dude has overt muscles like fellow character updates of the time. Director-screenwriter Kazuki Omori oversaw most of the Heisei series, with Takao Okawara directing the other entries. On to the Millennium series, we saw 5 different Godzilla continuities between 6 films, with there only being one direct sequel. 1999's Godzilla 2000 is one of the best Godzilla films ever, showing very thoughtful understanding of Godzilla himself in relation to humanity. Not only that, the film is a time capsule of the Y2K fear. I mean, I have this G-Fin magazine for when the film came out, and it was the newest film at the time, and it was such an interesting sight into the franchise at the time. This film was also directed by Takao Okawara. 2001's GMK is one of the best. I highly recommend it. The film comments on post-World War II politics, namely Japan's censorship on the war committed by Imperial Japan long ago. Godzilla is resurrected by the souls killed by the Imperial Army that the modern Japanese government chooses to forget in the modern day. There's also a deliberate parallel between the new generation and the old, highlighted not only by the Guardian monsters and Godzilla, but by the human cast. GMK was directed by none other than Shusuke Kaneko, the director of the Gamera trilogy. Kaneko has the following great quote: "Saying it's just a guy in a suit is not the right attitude. It's more enjoyable to watch these films when you understand their long history and culture." This was taken from a documentary in 2008. There's no doubt that special effects and resulting action are a big appeal for the Godzilla franchise. Believe me, I love my kaiju action as much as the next guy. And action is another way to tell a story, much like martial art films. Jimkai being an example of having tokusatsu battles with meaning behind them. Godzilla being the haunting embodiment of Imperial Japan's actions in the Pacific War, while doubling as a meta take on Godzilla continuously attacking Japan against King Ghidorah and the Guardian monsters, who symbolize embracing history and traditions compared to the new age we live in. If you look at 2004's Final Wars, directed by Ryuhei Kitamura for the franchise's 50th anniversary, it is the most early 2000s film in the series. From the soundtrack to the black leather, martial arts, camera work, one-liners, and overall extreme factor, it's clear that this was a time capsule in of itself. And I still can't hate it for being a truly unique Godzilla experience with its own identity. Your mileage will vary with this one. The original 1962 King Kong vs. Godzilla is more than just a crossover brawl. It is a momentous stepping stone in the history of kaiju eiga. This film is the definition of what people would eventually come to see giant monster brawls as, the first to perfect the blueprint, if you will. King Kong vs. Godzilla is about West versus East, but ultimately in a way that celebrates both characters. And it just so happens to be that they both share their third on-screen film appearance together. One that is in color for the first time too. Shinichi Sekizawa's script is fun, outlandish, and meta in a way that makes the world still feel very real for its characters. Godzilla is threatening, and King Kong is thrown into a world he doesn't know, and yet they fight in front of characters who work for a TV company, and said characters take in the spectacle as much as the audience does. King Kong vs. Godzilla made bank at the box office, and the film itself knew it was going to. It knew the purpose of the story it wanted to tell. From there, Showa Godzilla gradually grew from a threatening menace to misunderstood creature that became a reluctant defender, matured into a father, and ultimately embraced becoming a tokusatsu hero. All the while slowly chipping away his image as a monster and more so a fellow resident of the Earth. But we all know the franchise. Godzilla became a monster again in 1984 and did some heroic things out of coincidence before getting rebooted several times in the 2000s. And what happened with the Heisei Millennium incarnations? Well, they took aspects of Showa Godzilla and ran with it. whether it's taking a threatening menace or a misunderstood creature of power, and thus creating their own new Godzilla incarnation from there. The MonsterVerse and recent Toho Godzillas like Shin in the animes, the same thing implies. They took aspects of Showa Godzilla and created new versions of Godzilla. But the biggest difference and change in the franchise right now is that we have multiple Godzillas at once. My point here is Godzilla is at a very unique point in the franchise. There's no longer one Godzilla at a time, there's one for everyone. And what I find to be the coolest thing is, it's not for the sake of appealing to everyone. Rather, it's just different directors being able to do their own take on Godzilla. There might not be a better way to find new fans than to just focus on stories of purpose and drawing people in from there. So, it's okay to have Godzilla films you like and don't like. Yes, there are films that don't reach the same heights as others. No one should expect to love everything. But maybe the better way to approach it is to appreciate why a character is able to evolve. When I was a kid playing with my Godzilla figures, I just found it cool to have so many contrasting Godzilla designs side by side. A good friend of mine once said, "There's beauty in the contrast," and there might not be a better way to put it than that. There's a lot to discuss about the Godzilla franchise, but my main point here today was to respect the hard work put into a long-standing franchise such as this one, because it's not easy, man. Films take a lot of work, and a lot of effort and passion. The new films today can only stand because of the culture its predecessors have crafted. Because after all, Godzilla was the first tokusatsu character. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Godzilla films are. A like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, MGB out.